common everyday challenge, whether going on a shopping spree at the mall or visiting multiple tourist attractions while on vacation, or delivering pallets full of parcels all over a city or country,
is called goddamn people. They're everywhere, doing stuff like getting in your way, trying to interact with you, and generally being alive anywhere near me. And you're right, it needs to stop. But how? All I have so far is to put them in a big hole and then covering them with dirt. But it's getting them in there without having to actually be in the same 5 square miles as them that is really ruining all my plans. I mean, hypothetical ideas.
Is called the traveling salesman problem, or TSP. Now, the TSP's goal is for a person, given a list of destinations, to find the most efficient route where each location can be visited once and then return home.
Of course, the travel boy problemo, a well-known problem in computer science. I am sure that will be extremely relevant to a video titled, essentially, Bees Destroy Evolution, more or less, and not a massive red herring that has nothing to do with the actual ideas being discussed. Being.
It's a well-known algorithmic problem in the field of computer science that mathematicians and computer scientists have spent decades trying to solve.
Well, if only they'd asked the bees, who have obviously been working on the problem themselves in the bee universities on their bee pewters, or some shit like that. But in all seriousness, what the f*** has that got to do with bees at all? You know that biology, aka the study of organic things, doing, organic things, and computer science, the study of computers, in fact doing computery things, are not in fact the same.
As the number of locations increases, the complexity of the problem also increases, to the point where certain industries, those dealing with traffic management, online information flow, and business supply chains, are faced with TSP problems of staggering proportions.
Yeah, that's true. Humans have created a logistical nightmare for themselves over the years, as they demand more and more efficient and effective systems to get them their stuff. In frankly, kind of a teeny tiny time frame, whereas any potential natural analog will have had tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of years and beyond in timescales to solve those kinds of issues, or at least get pretty damned good at dealing with them. Makes you think that any apples to apples comparisons between the two would make literally no sense.
One way the problem can be solved is by analyzing every round-trip route to determine the shortest one. However, with just 10 destinations, there can be more than 300,000 round-trip combinations, and by adding just 5 more, the number of possible routes could exceed 87 billion.
That sounds really complicated, and it is, again, for computers, since computers essentially have to brute force a problem like that to figure out even suboptimal routes that are still pretty good, but they do so by checking literally every single one. Again, any natural critter isn't doing that, because they are not, shonk horror, computers. They are animals, and they get good at that shit because of shonk haronk, untold generations of them doing that shit for umpteen millions of years. With the selection pressure, that optimizes for them being, good at doing things efficiently, so they can outcompete their neighbors.
This brings the complexity of some TSP equations to the point of surpassing the capabilities of many computers, and keeping even our most efficient ones busy for long periods of time.
And here you are just wasting all of that computer power trying to use ideas that don't apply to evolution in order to attempt to refute it, when it could have been out there clearing roads for ambulances and optimizing power grids to keep all the hospitals running. Damn. And yeah, you could argue that I'm doing the same, but at least I want to cause as much suffering as possible. These guys would claim otherwise, although I'm not so sure.
If only we knew of a brilliant enough mind to be able to solve this dilemma quickly and efficiently. Where to look? Where to look?
See what you did there? Be able to solve it. great job. I mean, it's also fucking stupid because you're obviously talking about God, and you know what would have made the Bible actually convincing? For it to contain literally fucking any of the solutions that we need in this day and age. Just anything in there that explains quantum theory, or indeed the post-guy dealy bob, or an explanation for the diversity of life on this planet that wasn't fucking wrong. For some reason, it just contains nonsensical explanations that in no way reflect reality. Almost like the persons writing it had no idea how the world actually works and weren't all-powerful godmans.
But ask the beasts, and they will teach you, the birds of the heavens, and they will tell you, or the bushes of the earth, and they will teach you, and the fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? Job 12, verses 7 to 9.
See, I fucking called it, that's where he was going. And again, you're kind of proving my point. Hey, look at that thing. I totally did that. Doesn't prove that you did that. You would prove it by knowing how it works. Being able to explain it a way literally no one else would have been able to do. Because, no one but you did it, but for some reason, we instead had to wait for people to figure it out. And then anything that was even remotely attempted to be explained was so obviously wrong. Probably because the people who wrote it assumed it was unknowable, so they could get away with just making shit up. Okay, credit where credit's due. Humblebee. Bumblebee. That's pretty clever. I can only assume that's where 99% of the effort in crafting this video went. And frankly, considering what you are trying to do, fail at science, I think it's the right call, as you were always going to be wrong about everything, but a good pun is a good pun, and I respect the hell out of it, or perhaps into it.
Surprisingly to many, there's a common insect that solves this conundrum easily.
Easily is quite the understatement, or is it an overstatement? I don't know, whichever works best, but the point is, calling, again, a huge amount of years and uncountable living beings being born, doing the thing better or worse, dying, and then trying all over again for years and years and years and years and years and years is not exactly easy. It is in fact an incredibly complex, multi-layered set of events that led to the modern bee being pretty good at doing a particular thing. They don't just know how to do it because they am the smart, or as you are going to claim, they were made to specifically do it for some reason. They acquired such abilities through an unending trial and error regime, getting better by degrees so small you wouldn't even notice a difference in a single human lifetime. But over millennia, maybe, and over multiples thereof, you could perhaps to start see that real change. Because that's how the shit fucking works. Slow, but it works. It will get there in the end, which is the slogan of Arriva buses, I'm pretty sure.
It's all part of a day's work for the ever-busy, always buzzing, humble bee. And considering the size of their craniums in comparison to the largest computer that humans have ever built, it's quite the accomplishment for what would be considered a primitive creature.
You see, you've fallen into a bit of a trap there, although it's your own one, so maybe you shouldn't have put it out, but the idea that bigger, more powerful computer equal better at all tasks than small, low power fella, that's not how that works. As a matter of fact, the best way to do one specific job is almost always to have dedicated hardware, like an ASIC. No, not an AME. An ASIC is an application-specific integrated circuit. And the thing about ASICs is they can be tiny compared to standard multifunctional computers and absolutely fucking trash them at a task that they are designed for, but nothing else. So it's analogous to the tiny bee brain in that it's really good at one or two tasks, but you try to get it to build a tent? I mean, it wouldn't even know what the letters TENT even mean, let alone what the fucking sticks are for.
Indeed, the average bumblebee brain is less than 2 cubic millimeters in volume, about 0.0002% of the volume of the typical 3-pound human brain.
However, the average person can't even come close to solving the TSP like your local backyard's busybody can.
So what? Again, we are talking about the difference between a specialized function and a highly adaptive system that can do lots of jobs pretty well, but is rarely able to solve extremely complex tasks on its own or very quickly or either. Again, this isn't apples to oranges, it's toasters to industrial ovens. Yeah, you can do toast in both, but one requires the simple push of a button for a more or less perfect piece of toast every time, and the other needs you to feed it tons of gas, set some knobs and dials all over the shop, keep an eye on the damn thing, and you might end up with an okay piece of toast maybe. These are not the same things.
As Professor Lars Chitka stated in 2010, these types of computations rival human technology and keep supercomputers busy for days.
Okay, again, it doesn't matter, even if an apparently smart guy said it. It's like you were expecting the bees to have these enormous brains just sticking out of them if evolution does the true. But that's the absolute opposite of what anyone with a brain larger than a bee's would expect. Something of a bee's size is going to be simple, efficient, and elegant, or the bee isn't going to work, which, you know, keeping busy is like their main thing.
In nature, bees have to link hundreds of flowers in a way that minimizes travel distance and then reliably find their way home. Not a trivial feat if you've got the brain the size of a pinhead.
Or, you know, completely trivial if you have developed and adapted for a handful of tasks that you got really, really good at and not a lot else. I mean, seriously, I have been trying to get my local beehive to do my taxes for me, teach me how to drive, design a tasteful shrubbery, get everyone on Earth to like my videos and subscribe to my channel, and of course, get me the mining rights to all of Earth's whiskey. And they were only a small amount of help in one of those tasks. But I won't tell you which, but it does involve unleashing swarms of bees into people's houses. To be honest, I think the really hard task when you have a brain the size of a pinhead is making arguments about evolution that don't immediately fail as soon as you actually bother to think about them ever.
Comparing bee brains to supercomputers isn't a stretch.
Yes, it is. It's an absolutely massive stretch. A stretch so far that you could use it as a continental tape measure. As we have demonstrated already, these things are not only different in capabilities, but also in purpose. And that doesn't cover the huge difference between an evolved neural system to a man-made digital device that do things in such wildly different ways that we have still yet to fully understand a single creature, no matter how simple. But do bear in mind that doesn't mean, therefore God, checkmate atheists. It means that when you, again, have literally since forever ago to do something, it takes slightly longer than 5 minutes we have been working on it to figure out how to do it the same way, you thick
because the software package inside their minds contains many incredible capabilities, including their cutting-edge, by human standards, flight computing capability.
Sure, cutting edge maybe, but you're comparing something that's been around since, well, before humans even knew that flight was even theoretically possible, and they have come on leaps and bounds since then. So what happens to your arguments when humans figure out a way to completely destroy their version of that by comparison? Nothing good, I'll tell you that for free.
Indeed, bees' agility while flying and accuracy and sensitivity when landing, whether on a flat, angled, or inverted surface, is the envy of human aviation engineers and pilots.
Is it though? I mean, looking at this thing and this thing, I can tell you a few reasons why the pilots of a helicopter might not be too worried about a bee stealing their job anytime soon. I mean, the size is slightly different. One of them has the ability to store significantly more stuff inside it. And while the bee is, you know, a living being that can articulate its body in various ways and angles, I have seen pilots pull some crazy stunts that I think the bees would find extremely impressive if they could even comprehend what the fuck a helicopter was.
As Douglas Fox reported for New Scientist, such airborne agility is especially remarkable when you consider that the honeybee does it all on a shoestring, neurologically speaking. Its brain is only as big as a sesame seed, which is less than a millionth the size of the human brain.
A, I bet you are jealous of the massive size of their brain compared to your own, and B, presumably someone who writes for New Scientist, a generally credible source for scientific news, probably didn't then go on to say, therefore God did that, lol 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 lol, me am very smart creaty boy. Instead, I would imagine that it's actually considered a testament to the efficacy of evolution by natural selection, because you know, it is.
Surprisingly, bees have the equivalent of, if not the superior to, the compasses, gyroscopes, and airspeed gauges modern aircraft utilize.
That is so funny, because all of those instruments are pretty goddamn old and generally extremely simplistic pieces of equipment, all of them existing in an analog form of one sort or another for hundreds and even thousands of years in the case of the compass. You talk about cutting edge and then leap to some of the most basic forms of technology that we have today.
As well as UV sensors to track the horizon and measure tilt. And they also have compound eyes comprised of 7,000 hexagonal facets, which are superbly designed for detecting motion, which is used for navigation via a process called optic flow.
You mean eyes? And honestly, not even amazing ones at that. Human eyes can do things that bees could literally never dream of. And the rest, these are all solved problems when it comes to computers detecting the world around them. Your entire premise is supposed to be, look how amazing this thing is. Even humans can't do that. And then you list a bunch of shit that they can already do. And sure, the bee brain is micro-sized, but eventually technology gets smaller, generation on generation. Again, there's likely to be a point at which we surpass the current implementation in tiny animal, making your attempt to impress with the impossibility of these things completely meaningless.
Optic flow provides the bees with the ability to discern various possibilities of action within their environment, allowing them to perceive the shape, distance, and movement of objects in the world, and then control their locomotion in relation to them.
That is a lot of words to say. They can see things and then they do things based on the ability to see those things. You know, like literally fucking every animal on Earth, give or take a few, can do, including many smaller creatures. It's just you used a ton of words to describe an incredibly mundane process. Well done.
All of this onboard biotechnology provides bees with a sophisticated guidance strategy for landing on a variety of surfaces of differing orientation, as well as surface tension and avoiding any crash landings while performing their daily duties.
Come on, couching it as biotechnology is sophistic nonsense. No, I didn't say sophisticated. It is sophistry. It's not technology, it's evolved capabilities. Biotech literally has to be technology, something that currently, as far as we know, only humans can make. And until you can prove otherwise, no, you do not get to call things quote unquote made by God biotech either.
While we may view our local honeybees moving from place to place and touching down here and there in our backyards as mundane, landing safely is one of the most difficult aspects of flight, because the speed and rate of approach has to be reduced to near zero upon touchdown.
Yeah, if you're a fucking plane, a large yet relatively fragile object that's terminal velocity will absolutely fucking obliterate the thing. But you know what would happen to a bee if it stopped flapping even at fairly extreme altitudes? It would hit the ground, think, that was weird, and then fly off, likely completely unscathed. And that's not me saying that they don't land well, but to talk as if there's fucking bees crash landing at devastating effect if they somehow stop functioning mid-flight is utter gibberish.
And yet, whether on approach to hang upside down on a flower petal or plunk down on your porch rail, bees achieve this and many more landings with extreme ease, hundreds of times per day. After years of attempts to design an efficient AI landing system for robot aircrafts of all kinds, involving GPS systems, lasers, sonars, and radar technology, engineers have bowed to the brilliant yet simple tactic that bees employ. That solution bees use, known as optic flow monitoring, is to simply ensure that the surface being approached expands at a constant rate within their field of vision.
Look, it's clear engineers obviously will take inspiration from wherever they can get it, but that will never change where the inspiration came from originally. If God or nature the fact that humans copied some of its aspects literally cannot prove either, and to imply otherwise is incredibly, and I think intentionally, misleading, which is such a surprise coming from a creationist.
If you come in at a constant speed, the image appears to expand faster as you get closer. But if you keep the rate of expansion of the image constant, you automatically slow down, and by the time you make contact, you're moving at almost zero speed. This bee-inspired strategy is now used prolifically amongst aviation experts everywhere, with the use of drones becoming commonplace because of it.
So, if you find drones and their pilots really annoying, you should blame the bees. Cool.
And these performance methods are being analyzed and adopted by those seeking to employ them in spacecraft and spy drones. That honeybees and other insects accomplish so much with so little hasn't been lost on the likes of NASA and the US and Australian Departments of Defense to create the next generation of Mars probes and military spy robots.
Is that not just a tautology? If a technique works for this commonplace thing, why the hell wouldn't it work for other things as well? Yet another attempt to spark awe in your audience where none should exist. It's just the very obvious consequence of solving an issue.
The plan is to build tiny flying craft that can navigate autonomously, seeing, thinking, and avoiding danger using the same tricks insects have for over 350 million years.
I don't know why you thought the need to bring this up as if it doesn't dunk on your conclusion really, really hard. I know that you think that the universe did the do about 6,000 years ago because you're stupid, and that is not quite the same as millions of years. Millions of years, mind, that we can prove, whereas your timescale, on the other hand, is debunked by old fucking trees.
Of course, believing that a process involving no cognitive processes whatsoever, the story of evolution, somehow produced a creature with capabilities our most intelligent minds on the planet can't even come close to, requires some serious cognitive dissonance.
So, you think that it's wild to believe that humans might struggle to come up with a similar solution to a problem that nature has had the benefit of at least 3 million times as long, using a process that we know works and produces complexity. That is not cognitive dissonance. That is just how fucking knowing things works. The only people flailing under cognitive dissonance are the ones who believe that a guy lived inside a whale, or that the planet flooded and yet left no proof, or that light on Earth could exist before the fucking sun did, or that there's some kind of water bubble encapsulating the planet, or that some dude could literally change the chemical makeup of liquids by sheer force of will, and on and on and on, and yet also think that demonstrable science is incorrect because it refutes those obviously nonsensical things. You know, that really does make creationists sound like fucking morons. Yeah, checks out. Bye!